renewables and clean water for all. There's a focus on Southern California, Northern Baja, and Brazil. You'll see that, but in an ideal world, the same process, the same set of questions can apply to any place on the planet. And we're fortunate to have a couple of guests here from Vietnam. So they are here for the ESRI conference, the mapping conference that's here in town. So it's, I'm going to say Nguyen Thu. Yeah. Thank you. And it's Mai, and I don't know your last name. Thank you. So both from the universities in Vietnam, and they're here for this specific reason to figure out how to bring clean energy and water to their country. As it turns out, they're going through a 10-month drought right now. And nobody knows about it because you don't hear about it in our papers. But this is a condition that's sort of universal, either too much rain, too little rain, and everybody needs more renewable energy. So I'm thrilled you're here. Also another special guest, Eric Frost. Eric Frost is the director of the Viz Lab at San Diego State. So he's actually one of the inspirations for the Sim Center. When we got started, I walked into the Viz Lab, which is a higher tech version than this. And they do things on immediate fire response and some things with the Homeland Security. Very impressive center in the Geography Department at the San Diego State University. And I want to introduce Ron back here. Ron is our helps coordinate for the students our GeoDesign course. So he's retired GE engineer and has been helping us throughout the course. Arnold Vede, one of our volunteers, he's been helping on the GIS mapping. You're going to see some of his handiwork because he's been working with some of these students on their maps to make them better. Another guest, Tom Harrison. We have Pete Chen. And I think that's our crew tonight. Tough night again to get people out. You'll see the 4 students that are presenting. The rest of them that are here from around the world. This is Henan from Brazil. Charlotte is from Wellington, correct? Or New Zealand, I know. I'm not sure what part of New Zealand. All over. Okay, New Zealand. Pedro is back there on the AV team doing our video production. Clay, you're from, is it Stanford? Stanford, so going to, and most of these guys are, I'm going to put them all in the environmental engineering category, the work they're doing. One of our volunteers, great volunteers on AV, Michael Russell. Chase, I forget the school you're from, but help me out. Is it Pincer College? That's right. Pitzer, thank you very much. Derek, where are you from again? Which? Chicago. And Gabriela from Brazil. I think that's the crew here this evening. Did I miss anybody? So great. Thank you all for being here. Where you're at is at the Sim Center. The World Resources Sim Center is an idea and a vision of a man named Buckminster Fuller. He said we needed a venue where we can grapple with the hardest issues of our day. So we can visualize them. We want to visualize sustainable solutions to global and local problems so we make more informed choices quicker. That's the idea. This is meant to be an accelerator so that we can visualize past trends, future projections, and make smarter decisions quicker. So that's our reason for being. Thank you for being there online. You can watch this afterwards online. It'll be posted pretty much immediately on our website, on our YouTube channel. And so these students get a chance to obviously print to present, which is a challenging thing. You'll see a couple of our students are from Brazil. I'm always impressed when it's not their native language, and they'll get up and stand up in front of you, and they've done a lot of good work and present that, so excited with them. The first presentation this evening is from Trevor and Ashjit. They've looked at this issue specifically, and let me when I say this issue, this is the third in the series. The first one really just asked the question, why are we doing geodesign and who are we in San Diego? So that was really the question of session number 1. Number 2, it got into really just asking the question, what is geodesign in terms of what is this thing of using geography and comprehensive anticipatory design science principles from Buckminster Fuller? So what is it? And then really, what's the process? You know, you got to go through really a 6-step process to get to the answer. And I'm going to say the answer at the end of this, our Series 5, is a roadmap for our region. Hopefully, you would want to do a roadmap for Vietnam for 2050. So that's what this book is about: is creating roadmaps. So that's it. And so tonight, and we kind of we partnered a little bit with ESRI. They give us some software, and we're thrilled and thank them for some of the software donations that they make. This conference is in town right now, the ESRI User Conference. There's 20,000 users in from around the world. So it was a perfect opportunity for the students tonight to really focus on mapping our issue. So tonight you're going to see lots of maps, lots of trends. So that's the focus. These are going to be mostly PDF maps, but many of them were created using the GIS platform. I think that's a pretty good introduction. So with that, who starts tonight? Is that Trevor? All right, so Trevor's going to introduce himself. What I'd like you to do, if you're helping out with the laptops, is you can go ahead and set up slides 1 through 12. And what we do is in this process, we have a presentation of all first 12 slides, and then there's a dialogue after those 12 or a Q&A. So we'll do that. It makes it go a little bit faster, and you don't lose the continuum like a linear presentation. So if you'll go ahead and help set up slides 1 through 12 all the way around. And Trevor, go right ahead.
Yep, no worries. Good evening, everyone. So we're going to be presenting to you San Diego and Northern Baja, mapping water and energy. My name is Trevor Conger. I study mechanical and aerospace engineering at University of Southern California.
And hi, I'm Ashrit Talwar, and I study here at UCSD, and my major is electrical engineering.
So for those of you who weren't here for the first two presentations, I'm going to give you a brief recap, just a few slides. So pretty much San Diego and Northern Baja, very close. Northern Baja's our neighbors, and we've been part of a region that's been experiencing its 4th year of consecutive drought. Although San Diego's tap isn't necessarily running dry, we're still trying to come up with better methods to get our water from sources that aren't depleted and sustainable. Northern Baja, they feel the full force of the drought, so for many of them it's difficult simply to get enough water to support the household. So really we're going to look into the water, the problem of water in both San Diego and Northern Baja. We're also going to take a look at energy. So Northern Baja in particular is part of a fossil fuel economy. We're going to look into the vast amounts of potential in renewable energy for both regions, and how most of our analysis was performed using some of this visual software, which we'll see mostly on maps. So I'm going to pretty much dive right into it. One of the most important things we considered before we came up with any kind of solution to the the current problems at hand are observing past trends and future projections. So currently San Diego County has roughly 3.1 million people. And by 2040, it's estimated to be roughly 4.24 million. So that's quite a jump. That's from Sandag, so it's a pretty credible prediction. So that in turn will determine a greater demand for energy and water in the future. So we're gonna have to come up with a roadmap to pretty much prepare, for more climate change to come. So we'll talk about that as well. So getting into the drought situation up there, if you want to take a look on slide 5 here, that's a depleted irrigation channel to the rice farms of Richvale, California. It's we're starting to see a lot of this kind of thing. By 2050, our demand in California for fresh water is supposed to go up almost 40%. And our traditional sources, namely the Colorado River, are expected to shrink by 20%. In terms of volumetric water during that same period. So we're gonna tonight when we give you this presentation, we're gonna kind of divide the problem with water and energy for both of the regions. Even though Northern Baja's our neighbor right down south, it's obviously they have a lot of economic and political differences. So those need to be observed before we get into any kind of solutions. So. With me right here on 6, we're going to talk about the San Diego County and the water situation. So as you can see with 7 and 8, these are some graphics that kind of describe the coastal hydrological cycle that is San Diego. I know it's hard to see some of these labels, but these are pretty much a lot of just factors that pretty much make up the cycle, the primary components of which are precipitation, evaporation, and surface runoff. These are the 3 primary components. And San Diego County, as you guys probably know, gets very infrequent precipitation. However, when it does rain, even just a little bit, we get very extreme surface runoff, which affects our environment, our communities, namely our infrastructure. So that's a big thing. I don't know if you guys saw, but just this last weekend right here, this is what happens as a result of our surface runoff. So this is an image of part of the Interstate 10 that was washed away from last weekend's what they called a rainstorm. It was, just months prior, they had an inspection on this freeway and it passed with an A rating. So this is some of our most, sophisticated infrastructure. And within a lot of you guys were probably in San Diego just this last weekend, and you saw it wasn't much of a rainstorm, but just that little water can have that profound effect. So we're in a drought too, so it's this weird dichotomy. So let's back up a little bit and look at the situation of the drought. So this map here on slide 10 shows the national extent of the drought as of July of last year. As you can see, the southwest regions of the United States here are extremely dry, whereas the north Midwest regions up here, and this year even more so down here along the Mississippi, it's extremely moist. And looking in specifically at California here, you can see just during that same period how it increased to March of this year. And I know it's hard to see these color differences here, but it actually gets from a dark red to almost like a brown, because it's so it's so dark. We had a presentation a few weeks ago from a guy from Equinox, and he was telling us that a lot of these indices they used to describe the drought were added just these last few years. So it started with abnormally dry, moderate, and severe. And because they'd never seen a drought this profound, even more so than that occurred in the 70s, they had to add these two. And it seems to be like, just over a few months they just add another one simply to explain how much it's worsened. So how much precipitation would it take for us to get out of this drought? Let's say within 6 months. So this coast of Southern California would require 8 inches to a foot of rain to take us out of the drought, with the northern regions of California requiring more. But on the right here, you can see the probability of this happening within the same period. So it's kind of weird, but up north, we would need 1.5 to 2 feet of precipitation to get us out of the drought. But because the northwestern areas of the United States typically gets a little bit more rainfall, it's a higher percentage of that happening. Up in Northern California, you start to get into Oregon, Washington, so you get a lot more precipitation up there. Whereas down here in Southern California, even though we may need only 8 inches to a foot, it's only a 0 to 8% chance of that happening. So it's a very different, even though they're very close, these regions act very differently. And San Diego, we're down here in this southwestern tip, with northern Baja just being south of the border. So we're going to look into how both of these regions are kind of responding and how they're being affected by this drought. So
that's the first set. Just any quick questions, clarification for anybody?
Yep. Sorry about that.
Yep. Any questions, clarification for anybody? Yes, Tom.
I was wondering what our annual average rainfall is typically.
You know what our annual average rainfall for San Diego? Anybody know that? You had it in the first presentation, didn't you? Do you remember, Ashjeet? Yeah, we're in the tens, so it's.
But this is within 6 months. So that 10 inches of rain, or less than 10 inches of rain per year, that's over the whole year. So this would have to be intense rainfall for Southern California within a matter of a few months to get us out. So very unlikely, yeah. So, yeah. Any other questions on the first 12 slides here?
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question for I have a question for the screen number 9 here. I think that for this accident, it not only happened due to intense surface runoff. I think it also have other reason. For example, land subsidence or soil piping. Soil piping. And are there some reasons? So could you explain more about it? Because I think that intense field water runoff is not so strong enough to make the road become collapse like that. I think so.
What happened here? This was in the desert, middle of the desert, and we had a huge rainstorm of about 2 inches, wasn't it? We had a flash flood in the desert, and so what used to be a dry riverbed became a thriving riverbed for just a short period of time, and that's what can happen because it just eats away right under the river. So that's what can happen in some places, not all places, but that's an example. When we get too much rain, we have severe flooding in a quick period of time that we can't handle, and that's an example of that.
The only reason, the unique
That's the
reason.
main reason. Yeah, just too much rain in a short period of time, and we haven't set up our infrastructure to handle it.
Really quickly. And like I said, they had an inspection an inspection just months prior to this event. So they checked the condition of the road, the foundation under in the soil. So and it passed with an A rating. And those inspections, they take they're quite time consuming, and they really try to get a good idea of, how well prepared the infrastructure is in case of some kind of flash flood in this case. So again, this got an A rating. It was part of our inspections. It was deemed fit for no need for maintenance or anything. It was a well functioning road, and this just happened in a matter of a weekend. So surface runoff doesn't necessarily, in this case at least, I'm not necessarily talking about water only on the surface, but the groundwater flow as well, which gets under the foundation of the asphalt, has a big effect on how that road swept away. So.
All right, good. So we can go flip them around. So now we should be from 13 through 24 all the way around. So do you know how to do that? And it's going up real fast. So you can go started right away.
Okay, so continuing with the drought. So let's look at who saved and who didn't. So if you guys will turn your attention towards the slide 13 right up here, the first one on the deck, all the regions on this map of California in green are regions that had decreased their consumption of water in the past 3 years for the drought. If you look closely, the only region in red, or one of the only regions in red, is Southern California right here, which includes LA County, Riverside, and San Diego County. And they had an 8% increase in water usage over the last few years. And what this does is, because Southern California's usage is such a big part of California's overall usage, it actually increased the statewide consumption rate by 1%, even though all the other regions had decreased their usage. So Southern California had a profound effect on the way we were consuming our water from May 2011 to 2013 and May of 2014. So that's just in a matter of 3 years. So if we look at some of the highest consumption as far as water district in California, 2 of San Diego's water districts rank in the top 5. In fact, Santa Fe Irrigation District ranks 1 with nearly 600 gallons per person per day, which is a vast amount of water, obviously. Rainbow Municipal Water District had almost 430. And if you compare that to Los Angeles DWP, Department of Water and Power, they only had almost 95 gallons per day per person. And although Los Angeles is a very commercially dense area, they don't have a lot of the landscape we have here in San Diego County, especially like when you look at the northern counties like Del Mar, Rancho Santa Fe, and some of those counties where the landscaping alone accounts for a tremendous amount of that water use. So in essence, San Diegans need to really start considering moving away from the traditional sources and moving into other means such as desalination or more recycling or conservation and that kind of thing. If you look at slide 15 here, on this map of California, it shows some of the proposed and existing desalination plants. So this one down in Carlsbad right here, it's actually north of here, about 15, 20 miles. That's supposed to go up and running at the end of this year, and it's said that it's going to supply about 7 to 8% of San Diego County's fresh water. So that's a step towards maybe costlier water, but definitely one that's more a method that's more sustainable. So as you can see, Santa Barbara has already one functioning up here, and there's one on Catalina and San Nicolas Island. So again, it's costly. We all know that, but these are the kinds of methods we're gonna have to look into if we want to stop taking from our local supply. If you take a look here, this is the San Diego County water diversification. So in 1991, 96% of our water usage was provided by the Metropolitan Water District, which a lot of which came from local supply. If you look at 2012, we started to diversify quite a bit. However, this area here, this local surface water, increased by 20%. And so the projection, this is kind of where we want to be, according to San Diego County Water Authority. We'd like to have some desal in there, a little bit less local surface water, with some of these other, as you can read here, some of these other methods or districts. So really diversifying, not just changing to one method, like changing all of our methods of getting water to desal. Of course, we couldn't do that, but it's really all about diversifying our water usage. So let's back it up, and so I know a lot of you guys living in San Diego that are local to here know that San Diego's usually broken down. A lot of people refer to this, coastal from downtown all the way up to Oceanside area, this coastal region, and then there's the inland empire going into the mountains, and then the desert out by Santee. You go way out east. So this is some of the way. This is kind of how they break it down based on the geography. Even though we're right next to one another, they have very different. Because of the lay of the land, some of them have a lot of agriculture and things like that, while the other, like the coastal zone, has a lot of population density. So it's just a way of organizing San Diego County in a way that suits kind of the lay of the land. So again, all this agriculture is out more eastward, or in that the inland empire. As you can see here in these great these shaded regions, that was provided by San GIS. And if we look even closer at agriculture, we can see some of the breakdown in freshwater use in California by sector and by crop. So if you see here, I don't know if you guys can see this, 20% of California's freshwater use goes to urban and 80% to agriculture. And then here's the breakdown of the agriculture. So as you can see, fruits and nuts and alfalfa make almost 40% of California's freshwater use. Astonishingly, we learned that a lot of the alfalfa we grow here, we export to China for their for cattle feed. So we're taking more or less our our fresh water here and exporting it. So that's something that's become very controversial. And if we move over here, however, we see kind of the back end of this argument, because California, obviously, as you know, has a very rich agricultural heritage, and it's a very big part of our economy. So I'm sure you guys have heard that an almond takes about upwards of a gallon per nut in its life cycle. But here you can see that almonds are almost a $6 billion industry. And in here, the color coded, it's hard to see the shading, but a darker color implies more water intensive crops. So this is in trillions of gallons in 2010. So you can see almonds is very high up there. However, it's a very, it's a big part of our economy. Pistachio is another water-intensive crop. So again, these have become a topic of debate recently, especially in the midst of this drought, because people want to. They get a lot of the farmers get a lot of criticism for using the crop, but it's very difficult to simply abandon your way of growing or your crop in a small amount of time and simply adapt to new crops, because as you can see, they're obviously getting a lot of profit, and it's not the only part of our water expenditure. So the key points when it comes to water are pretty much that it's become increasingly difficult to create policies that focus on reliable sources and that'll meet the demands of San Diego County, and not just currently, but down the road. So we know we're in a drought now, and we've depleted our sources to the point of no return, and we're only going to get more demand down the road in coming decades. So practicing local conservation and recycling, as well as employing new techniques like the desalination, will ultimately be the path to a sustainable San Diego with respect to water. So now Ashish is going to take it over here with talking about energy. Okay. Yep.
The completion on the water cycle. So other questions or comments about this water issue from audience here?
Yeah, this is for water for San Diego County.
Yep. Thomas?
Yes.
So almonds are a large part of our economy. What's the advantage of this? Is it essentially jobs and taxes?
Well, actually, California produces in the high 90s. I don't want to make up a number, but I know it's above 90% of the nation's almonds. And these, yeah, it's very, I mean, they make a ton of those almonds here. And it's a huge, obviously a lot of farmers involved in that industry. So it's been very, like the target, a lot of the controversy that comes to, irrigation and farming as far as water use. But really, it's just hard to target one group because in a way, it's unfair to the farmers who can't simply abandon a crop that they may have been growing for generations. So, it sounds like the smarter way to maybe allocate some of those crops elsewhere or have someone else kind of take in and produce some of those almonds themselves. But it's easier said than done because someone has to switch their way of life. Does that answer your question? Or?
So, any conflicts in the water use by different sectors? If yes, how to solve the conflicts? Because
What do you mean by different sectors?
for example, in agriculture, energy, or another different. Industry versus agriculture. Yeah, different sectors use water in that you have here by sector here. Growth and also for industry on users making any conflicts between them when use water. So in our country we have some conflicts between the irrigation and keeping water for hydro dam energy, and that when they need water they keep, but when they don't need water in flooding time they throw the water into the upstream. So I don't know here situation, any conflict in the water use.
Maybe between agriculture and urban.
Yes, any conflict between the sectors users.
I don't know if conflict is the right word, but I know as far as making policies, there's a lot of backwards debate on how we could cut back our water usage, and a lot of people target these farmers of these particular crops, the water intensive crops. So I guess there's some tension there, and as far as making policies, but I don't know about conflict as far as between sectors between these sectors. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, we saw this last week, and I'm sorry you weren't there, Thomas. Because the Central Valley isn't getting as much water as it normally might, they are drilling deeper, as you said, and we actually saw a picture where parts of Central Valley have sunk, wasn't it, 50 feet? Actually, because of their pulling water out of the aquifer and just going deeper because their neighbor is drilling, then this neighbor has to drill too. Parts of that valley is sunk 50 feet from where they were several decades ago. So they're competing against one another. Clearly, in San Diego, we have a high-tech industry that requires clean water for some of those processes. Up on Torrey Mesa, there we have a biotech industry that requires clean water to survive. If we don't have that supply, they would move. Just to be a homeowner right now, you're asked to cut back between, I think, 8 and 30% on your own individual bill. And some people said, I already cut back, right? I already ripped up my lawn, right? So I think everybody's being asked to reduce and conserve at a time when they thought they already did enough. We're at a stage 2 emergency or stage 2 category water crisis now. Stage 3, I think, gets to the point where not only the cuts are voluntary, but they're mandatory at certain levels. Stage 4. Stage 4, if we get to that, you stop. You can't even build new housing developments. That's, for a developer, that's the end of their business, right? So there's certainly conflicts that create, not in a warring situation conflict, but certainly, how do I get mine? And when there's not enough, people start to certainly get upset. All right, good. So want to move on? SG.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming out tonight. So I'm going to talk a bit about the San Diego Energy County issue. But before I dive into that issue, I just want to talk about solar power and how solar power works. So primarily, there are two kinds of solar power two kinds of solar power: photovoltaics and concentrated, or better known as solar thermal energy. On the upper half of this graphic, we can see how a PV cell works. So the idea is that light induces a voltage across the PV cell, and in turn, this creates electricity, which then is fed into the grid. And from the grid, you can use transformers to send electricity to residential and industrial uses. And in the lower half of this graphic, we can see how solar thermal energy works. You can see a stack of mirrors. You can see a stack of mirrors put up together in order to concentrate all the sunlight towards this boiler here. And in turn, this boiler will produce steam, which then moves or rotates a turbine, which eventually then produces electricity into the grid. And up here on this graph on slide 24, we can see the photovoltaic potential in the United States, and we can see in the southwest here of the United States that the potential is the most, ranging up to more than 7 kilowatt hours per meter square in a day.
Let's go ahead and turn the screen. So if we can go to the next steps, we should start with 25 over on number 1. Moving around. Go ahead, Ashjit, I'll start showing up. So if we go to number 2 there, Charlotte. 22, 26. There we go. Go ahead.
Should I start?
Just keep going. Right.
All right. So up here on slide 25, we can see the number of solar farms set up within the United States, as well as those being constructed. The orange represents those that are constructed, and the green representing those that have already, those that are going to be constructed. And each of them have a different capacity. You can see that within California, there are a lot of solar farms. And also, surprising, there are a lot in North Carolina. And the reason for that is because of the solar tax credits in North Carolina. It's about 30 to 35%. So that's a very good opportunity for solar investors within that region. And that 30 to 35% number is going to last till 2016. Yeah, and that number is going to last till 2016. And up here on slide 26, we can see the wind potential for the United States. And we can see that offshore there's a good potential, but in the Midwest region, it's the best. It's the best. And the reason why people would, or rather the wind developers wouldn't want to invest in offshore is because setting those transmission lines underground is 3 times more costly than those compared to land. And we can see that the wind speeds here are more than 8 meters per second. And zooming in closer to California, again, you can see there's good offshore potential. But I know it's kind of a trick there, but there is no actual wind potential in San Diego. Yeah, there's no wind potential in San Diego, actually. And this graph here would kind of zoom in and show you that, would show you that fact. But however, if you look inland towards the Mexico border in East County, you can see right here that there's a great potential for wind. And one of our wind farms, I believe, is set up here. On to slide 29. These are all the wind farms in the United States. And these red dots actually represent the job opportunities as well as the farms that are to be constructed and those that have been constructed. And you can see that, again, that the wind potential is best, again, in the Midwest region. And you could see the graph on slide 26 that shows that and confirms that fact. And down here in Texas, you can see it's dark blue, which shows that the wind potential is the best. And I believe in Texas, it's the current capability is about 14,000 megawatts of wind power. Any quick questions just before I give the mic to Trevor?
So I'm going to step back in just briefly to discuss one of the major problems with San Diego as far as using energy. So if we look at just the carbon emissions breakdown, the vast majority comes from the transportation and just the electricity. But San Diego is one of the few cities here where the transportation is, it's more than half. In fact, every day there are 60 million vehicle miles traveled in San Diego, which is roughly just south of 20 miles per person per day driving their cars. If you look at just on the highway, this is San Diego here over the past, since 2005, compared to some of the other major counties in California, like Los Angeles, Orange County, Santa Clara. There's also the California average up there in blue, right here, and San Diego's at the very top, anywhere from 14 to 16 vehicle miles on the highway per day. So that's pretty, we can clearly see where a lot of those CO2 emissions are coming from. So looking at, this is a map, two maps actually, from SANDAG and from their new initiative, San Diego Forward. It shows in 1999, the San Diego County here, their planned usage was, or their land usage was going to go out east into these areas. As you can see, population density, employment density would go out east. However, just this last year, as part of their new revised plan, they're going to keep the development, namely the employment population. They're going to try to incentivize keeping that along the coastal regions for a variety of reasons, mainly to make the current transit and future transit, so bus, trolley, metro, those kinds of things, it'll be more efficient if it can go right along the coast here, along certain hubs where most of the employment and population density is. So if we can make a more efficient transit system, then we can disincentivize people using their cars so much. So these are some of the maps that we created using some of the data we got from SanGIS Database Warehouse. So here, I know it's hard to see with this, this projector here, but these are current bike paths in green in South San Diego County around downtown all the way up to kind of Encinitas area up here. But you can see there's quite a bit of bike paths here, and these are the ones in blue that they plan on putting in as part of their master plan. So as you can see, it's almost double the amount of bike paths. So people living close to San Diego, downtown or close to anywhere where they may work, now have more opportunities to use bikes to get where they need to go. And if you look here at 35, you can see some of the major freeways in red. Again, I know it's hard to see, but here, just this little piece in green, these are the planned freeways as part of the master plan. Not a lot, and reason being, they want to kind of step back in making all these major freeways going eastward to again disincentivize people using their cars so much. Rather than making new freeways, they could revitalize the transit, some of the MTS and those kinds of things, so it'll be more efficient. And ultimately, we'll be able to cut this back here, this 55%. So the majority of, again, San Diego's carbon emissions comes from that transportation. So are there going to be any questions on these slide decks?
Questions about the wind, the solar potential, the transportation issues here? We good, Thomas? You have a professional, just one second. You have to use the microphone or the camera can't pick up the voice, so we want to make sure we're using the microphone. Yes,
Okay. Hope this is applicable. Do you know what a bike path, like the definition of it is? Is it
Yeah.
paved on a street? Or
Some of them are paved on streets, and a lot of them are also in like preserved areas, like where you would normally go on a hike and stuff. They actually put in areas where you can kind of go on your bike. That's a lot of the more in the eastern and northern county, more towards Encinitas, Del Mar, Torrey Pines area. But in San Diego, downtown San Diego, down here, most where you see a lot of the dense blue bike paths that they're planning, that's on the street. So they're promising, or they're part of their plan is to not only put more bike paths, but also put a barrier between the bike path and the road. So it'll actually make bicyclists feel safer.
Great.
it's a multiple definition we heard the other night. There's bike paths that are just paint on the street, and then they all get all the way up to their own dedicated lane. So that's nice. Alex, did you have a question on bikes? I'm sure you do.
Not on bikes. Can you just quickly summarize the solar incentives the government or Californian state government or even the counties have in place, and for how long? Do you have any numbers and figures on?
So, I mean, I don't know all of them by heart, but on the website called Desire, if I'm correct, they show all the kind of incentives and projects that are getting set up. And I do know there are over 200-300 projects last when I checked that website on the tax incentives. And I believe that, I think Peter can tell you better about the solar PV that he's going to install in his home because of the tax credit.
Go ahead and keep that. Yeah, and just in California, there are, because there's so many incentives for individual cities that are different city by city, so there's 200 different policy mechanisms that incentivize or give you a tax credit. The primary one in California right now that they provide is called net metering, which basically says the meter will, when you put solar on the rooftop and it's generating power, if you generate more than you need, your meter will spin backwards and you'll get an exact credit for that power that you put into the grid that you get back. It's a net amount. There's no loss or there's no reduction. That will change in a few months because we're hitting this 5%. I call this 5% total number of rooftop PV, and at that point in time, there will be a change. Nobody expects that net metering to stay. So if you're going to put solar on the rooftop, it's a real good time to do it now. They don't say how it's going to change, but you can guess that it's not going to be as generous to the homeowner. I don't know if it's getting in. They actually, yeah. How does it cut into SDG&E's profit? SDG&E makes no money on the power portion of your bill, so it's just a pass through. So they've decoupled the sale of energy from actually their profits, which is why they actually encourage you now to be energy efficient. Yes, so doesn't matter where the power comes from them, they're going to get paid for it, but they make no profit on it. And that was an important distinction. Was it a couple of decades ago, I believe now, that came about, because if they were making profits on selling of power, they would want you to buy more power. Yeah. And somebody putting solar on the rooftop would take profit away from them. They don't encourage you to put solar on the rooftop, but they don't discourage you either. They have to accept that power and they have to buy it. And I think you're aware there's a 33% portfolio standard for the utilities now throughout the state. They all have to have 33% renewable by 2020. And the solar on the rooftop does not count in that number. So we have about 4% solar rooftop, 33%. We've already reached that. So actually San Diego County leads the country in terms of renewable generation from the utility and rooftop solar. We are a market leader here. So other questions for these guys? Our biggest CO2 polluter for sure are all those cars. All those cars on the road. So we'll get to some solutions. Yes, Mike.
So you have very interesting relation between land use planning and also transportation after that emission. So here another idea about compact city. That means they make very optimum arrangement of the office, working and living, so that the minimize movement of the people from work to the places and also places to the another services. So you have any idea for that area?
That's what this plan is. These maps again are projections. So when they cut back towards the coast here, they really mean that they're going to preserve those lands or leave them as they are. And the lands that are on the coast again are going to be much like you said. If the transit and the trolleys, the buses, those kinds of things are next to where people work and live, they'll be more tempted to use those what's offered there rather than using your own car. So it's a way to incentivize you to use the transit to take advantage of that. And again, it makes it a lot more efficient when it's along the coast there, where people could simply go from their house to the trolley to work. They don't have to get in their car to go out east or to spread it out. It's not necessarily congestion, but it makes the transit a lot more efficient. So
We are going to build with more density.
Yeah.
More density, more higher. Yes.
That the SD4 plan did show. So the SD4 plan that just came out recently, I mean, it was one of the other presenters who came here that night and showed us the plan for San Diego. Said exactly the same thing that you just said. Compact cities, how office, residential, all these areas are just linked closely together, so movement is kind of easier as opposed to taking your car and driving all the way down. So I know a couple of people commute all the way from like La Jolla just down to here downtown San Diego because there's no other form of transportation. So that's tying back into the 2015. They've realized that issue, so they are going to resolve that definitely.
All right, good. So we want to shift now to a whole different reality, which is the other side of the border. So this is the challenge that we wanted to take on this summer. Was we live in a beautiful paradise here in San Diego. It's one of the great places on the planet, and right next door, 20 miles from here, 20 minutes from here, we have essentially a developing country, same geography, but a totally different reality in terms of its GDP, in terms of its quality of life. So I've asked these students to dig into how can they also tackle that same set of issues of energy and water for the developing side of the border that's our neighbor. And you guys are going to jump in here? There you go. Okay.
Oh.
So it should start over here, number 37 on number
No,
1.
so it's 36 is the first one actually.
Okay, I'm sorry.
36 is the first one.
36 on number 1,
And then
37 on number 2, Charlotte. There we go.
yeah, because it was starting off there, but it kind of got chopped off. I mean, should I just start irrespective? All right. So now I'm just going to introduce a bit about the situation of water in northern Baja. Up here on slide 37, Trevor already described what the hydrological cycle is. But the difference is that fact right here in the bottom is what differentiates the Mexican hydrological cycle. And we can see that 70% of the water just evaporates, while 20% is runoff. That gives only about 5% left for groundwater and recharging the aquifers. But keep in mind that this is a generic statement, and this data was from 2008. So keep in mind that the drought has also happened. So that number 4.7 is even lower now. So you can just imagine that just having water in the ground is so less for Mexico. And on slide 38, this is a graph about the hydrology in northern Baja. The blue lines over here represent the river systems. I mean, it looks like they have enough river systems, but actually it's a bit deceiving. What these river systems, these river systems are underground, and until it doesn't rain, they will not come up. And these brown lines here represent the water boundaries and the watersheds. And up here towards the Mexicali region, I know it's a little hard to see, but there are canals there. And the use for these canals primarily are to transport drinking water and use for irrigational purposes also. Up on slide 39, here we can see a bit about the pressure on the water resources in Mexico. And in northern Baja, the situation's pretty bad, and it's a very high pressure on the water. And keep in mind that in a few years, Mexico's population, especially that northern Baja region, is going to increase. So that means the pressure on water is going to be even more. And with the drought in mind, that means the supply is going down. So you have a case where you have excessive demand almost, and almost very less supply of water. Diving a bit into the precipitation in Mexico, we can see that this dark blue region, it represents a good rainy area for Mexico. However, you can see the northern Baja region is relatively drier as compared to the other regions. And up here on slide 41, this is just diving a little deeper about the drought situation. So the thing is, A and H right there represent agriculture and hydrological drought. So not only does northern Baja have less rain, but it affects their hydrological and agricultural cycle more than the rest of Mexico. All right, thank you. Yeah, it's fine. Yep. And up here on slide 42, we can see the aquifers in Mexico. And this blue, kind of dark blue shade represents saltwater intrusion, and the gray one represents brackish water. By saltwater intrusion, I mean that because these aquifers are overdrafted, it means that people keep digging deeper and deeper into the ground to extract water. But there's a point where it actually meets a couple of the rivers and meets a couple of the rivers, and this leads to leads to salt intruding in the water, and in turn this affects the quality of water that they have. So what happens? So that is still affecting this northern Baja region. Sorry, it's fine. Yeah. So seeing a bit about the water allocation in Mexico, we can see that this blue region here represents Mexico, and this corresponds to about 300,000 gallons of water just for the entire Baja region. And as a stat for comparison, the average American in an entire year uses 64,000 gallons of water. So yeah, that is a crazy stat. That's about 6 times more than a person in northern Mexico. Yeah, that's true. And up on slide 44, this kind of shows the good news, though, that Baja potentially has, is that out of those 370,000 gallons of water, 200,000 gallons of water can actually be reused. And the way that the National Commission of Water intends to reuse this water is through wastewater treatment primarily. And up here on slide, now I'm going to dive in a bit into the energy situation in northern Baja.
Any questions, dialogue around what we're able to find? Yes, Michael.
So my question is, in your research, did you find anything? I saw a lot of stuff about recycling water or reusing wastewater, but did you find anything that indicated either Mexico or the U.S. would use that wastewater to recharge the groundwater aquifers?
No, I did not do that.
Okay, good. So let's do our last session on Northern Baja energy. I know there's just a few slides after that, so you can go ahead and do these two. And if those of you on number 1 and 2, you can flip to the next set. Count to 12 on number 1, and you'll go around. Okay. So go ahead and get. Oh, what happened?
Function F4.
There we go. Can you get back to 46 there? Keep going. Faster fingers there, Henan. There you go.
All right, now diving in a bit into the northern Baja energy situation. Right here on this graph on 46, this graph actually shows the fact that Mexico is a fossil fuel economy primarily, and the line over here, the green line, shows the increase in natural gas over the years. And the reason for increase in natural gas is because it powers up most of their industrial facilities, as well as it's a primary source for cooking. This is the main way they use. This is the main source they use for cooking. And up here on slide 47, however, we can see the renewable energy. The wind farms. The wind farms in northern Mexico, and we can see that these wind farms are located close towards the mountainous and ridge area, and they just have 2 wind farms, but they will, I believe, when I was researching, they're going to set up a couple of other farms in the near future. Up here on slide 48, these are the 3 solar farms that exist currently in Mexico. 2 are close to the Mexicali area, and the third one is in Ensenada. Diving in a bit deeper into the northwestern Mexico wind potential, we can see that there's a bit of offshore potential here, and that wind speed's about 6 to 7 meters per second. But diving in a little closer, this graphic kind of zooms into that region. We can see there's the best potential for that Baja region is right here in the center, more towards this ridge kind of area. And these wind speeds are more to 8 to 9 meters per second. And up here on slide 51, this is the solar potential for northwestern Mexico, as well as the southwest of the United States. And you can see here in this part that this north half of Baja has a great solar potential. And if you notice carefully that San Diego and Baja can actually kind of work together, there's an option for San Diego to share the electric potential energy simply because this transmission line exists here. So that means there's an existing infrastructure to actually kind of share the energy, which might be beneficial to both ways. And so just a conclusion right here. San Diego and Baja are completely, I mean, they're right next to each other, literally 20 minutes away almost. And we can see there's a different lifestyle and economic style of both the regions. But the good news is that both these regions have the ability to have clean and renewable energy. And thanks to the GIS software, we've had a good visual tool to understand what, solar potential, wind potential, and all other kinds of potential that exists for both nations. And this kind of a process or GIS can be used for any other country to map out, not just San Diego or Baja. And here's our information if you have any questions or would like to email us. And thank you so much, everybody. And questions?
Give him a big hand, would you? Very nice job. So that was, again, mapping our region, making it visual. That's what we want to do, is better understand who we are and where we're headed, and obviously some opportunities in this region for moving toward wind and solar at a much higher scale. We're already leading the world, and there's so much more that we could do. And with renewable energy, you can do desal, and obviously there's plenty of water right over there, right? No lack of water, but desal needs a lot of energy and it's expensive. Questions, comments at the end here for these guys? Thomas, hang on.
I heard the expression used for the United States and for Mexico as being fuel economies.
No, sorry, that's just this Mexico region is a fossil fuel economy, my bad. I was just zooming into that graphic because it kind of shows that they primarily use natural gas, and there are tons of oil reserves in that region. So they're trying to shift towards that renewable energy, but I mean, expecting them to do that in the next 2 years is kind of impossible, So defining that process over a 20-year period is easy. I mean, they are shifting, but it's just a slow rate, definitely because of infrastructure, economy, GDP, and these factors come into play.
Okay. Is there an economy in the world, do you know, that's considered a renewable energy economy?
I mean, nobody's 100% right now, but we're getting in.
I'll answer that. All right. Yeah, now you're in my wheelhouse. So yes, there are two countries that are essentially 100% renewable today. Iceland is one, totally 100%. And 80% of that comes from hydro, 20% from geothermal. The other one is Norway, and that's 99% hydro. So two countries are there today, entirely renewable to keep all the lights on.
Natural resources available?
Yes.
And that's just for energy. If you look at water, you don't necessarily call it renewable, but Israel is a country, right in the Middle East, and they don't get a lot of their water from rivers or anything. So they're almost getting, I think, in the high 90% from desal. They have got, I think, 5 or 6 main desalination plants which provide water for the country. So that's completely sustainable. They're getting that from the the Mediterranean. So.
I think they're doing a lot with like rainwater catchment also. And I sometimes wonder why we're not doing this more. Those last couple of storms we had, I mean, you could watch, 6 inches deep rainwater going down the stormwater drains. Yeah. So is that something, that's available to us?
That's a particular issue in San Diego because you have, vast areas where it's almost all asphalt or concrete on the ground, very little infiltration. So it's hard for the rainwater to really get into the ground. And that's also why we get a lot of flash flooding, even in very developed areas, because as the water can't infiltrate into the soil, it flows on top of the concrete and asphalt and picks up high speeds, and then you get flash flooding and stuff. But as far as the river catchment and or the rainwater catchment and that kind of stuff, we really haven't really fully taken advantage of these new techniques. So
seems like Mission Valley might be a good place.
Trevor, you mentioned today what's going on in the LA River. Speak to that.
Yeah, that's another thing. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the LA River. It's in the Terminator movies. You guys have probably seen that. It's they concretized it to make sure that they wouldn't get flooding inside of LA. They did that, in the early 20th century. But now they're planning on spending tons of money. I mean, I'm sure tens of millions of dollars to revitalize the LA River. So they're going to de-concretize it in some areas. Not on the main junctions where they need water to be going out where it can't build up and flood the areas, but they're going to try to put in soil rather than take out the concrete and put in soil, and kind of put a lot of landscape and growth around those areas. So they're trying to like revitalize the river in a way, and that's a big project they've been talking about for a while. But I think they just I don't know if they gave the go-ahead, but it's a proposal they're still discussing, and I'm pretty sure. I mean, we'll see if it goes through. So.
Yes, some of the work we did back in 2010, as we were building our first prototype of the Sim Center, we triggered some action in a local group headed by Greg Chick, Ramona's plumber, and because of that action, they literally changed the way that rainwater could be captured according to the county regulations. So they got a group of people together. They went up there and they actively lobbied the county, and the regulations were changed because of that. So you can actually get county certified rainwater capture systems now. They come out and inspect it and allow you to do it now. It wasn't allowed before.
They'll actually give you a rebate for that cistern. If you want to buy a cistern today, I think 75 gallon cistern, you'll get a rebate for that. You can recycle your gray water from your washing machine without a permit now and have it go directly into your garden. So we are moving, I'm going to say, pretty rapidly. When you have an emergency, things happen a lot more rapidly. Great job, you guys. We're going to move into the Brazilian thing, okay? So for you on the laptops, let's have them come back because I want to make sure the Brazilian gals have a chance too. All right. So hit escape, if you will, and we're going to go to a presentation that says "Presentation Leticia" at the bottom.
No, it's Anna.
Oh, are you going first?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So Anna's presentation is first. So these two young ladies, they're from Brazil. They have been doing, again, tremendous work with a focus on water and energy for their country. We all think of Brazil as this abundant resource of, I'm going to say, water, oxygen because of the Amazon. And interesting, you're going to find out that they have some of the same issues going on that we have going on here in California, and that just that's again that surprised me as well. So Anna, you're first. So if we can start to see that come up around the room, it looks like it's coming. So number 2 there, could you move that? And we'll make sure it all gets set up. So you're on. All right. So you got to use that real close. Introduce yourself. Okay.
Hello, my name is Anna. My major is environment engineering. And I spend most of my time here at Jenny working with ArcGIS maps, and some of the maps are here. So the first map is Brazil geography. Brazil is this huge country in South America, and up to the north we have the Amazon forest, and also okay, and also there is a big watershed that is the biggest in the world there in the Amazon. And here is the southeast region of Brazil, where is the most populated and the most industrialized area in Brazil. Here is about the surface area in Brazil in comparison to United States. The area of United States is around 9.8 square kilometers, and in Brazil it's 9.5 square kilometers. So these areas are pretty close, and the United States is the 3rd biggest country in the world, and Brazil is the 5th. Here is about demography in Brazil. This range is about population density, and the dark colors are the places with the most population density. And these dots is cities, and the large dots, it's the biggest cities. So this area, the southeast area, is the most populated area in Brazil, and then the northeast. Here in the north and the west center, there are not many people living here, so they don't have a high demand energy. This is about the population growth in Brazil. So the population is growing, and it will still growing until 2040. And this is about electricity generation. Brazil is the 8th, with at 538 terawatt hours, and China is the first one, and United States the second. This map is about the electricity consumption per region in Brazil. So here in the southeast, it's the place with the highest consumption and highest per capita consumption and average consumption, because it's the most populated area in Brazil, and there are many industries in this area, so that's why. And here are graphs showing the energy consumption of each region and the per capita consumption and average consumption. In the north, it's not so populated, so it doesn't have much energy consumption in that area. And here are the transmission lines in Brazil. They are in different colors because of the voltage of each of them. And the transmission lines is according where there is more demand of energy. So there is more transmission lines in the south, northeast, and here in the north, they don't have much transmission line. Oh, the blue. The blue countries are the Mercosur countries. It's a common market in South America, and these countries, the white one, are countries associated to the Mercosur. It's a common market. It's Brazil, Venezuela, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina. So this is the source of electricity in Brazil. The most common source is hydro, and we have to diversify it. We have to use more of the other source. For example, this year, Brazil has been in a water crisis, and we had some problems with the generation of energy, so we have to diversify it. This is about electric generation capacity. This first bar are the facilities that are operating, and these are constructing. And the last one are the facilities that are planned, but they didn't start constructing. So most of the sources is the hydro source, and also we have a lot of thermal sources. That is coal, oil, biomass, and natural gas. Also, the wind generation is increasing. Here it's like 5%, and in this last one is about 9%. So let's talk about hydropower. This is a dam in Brazil. It's the bigger one in Brazil. It's Itaipu, and it's in the border with Argentina.
Yeah, that's a picture. And how big is it? Remember?
It's about 14 gigawatts.
14 gigawatts. Second largest hydropower plant on the planet. What's number one now?
It's in China, Three Gorges.
Yeah, very good. So this is, again, sort of an introduction, but it also is very nice. I want to acknowledge Anna. She came with some GIS expertise. Some of these maps are the ones that she created herself. So these population maps, these population density. So she's been building these, getting data from Brazil and building these maps using this tool called ArcGIS. Yep. So I really want to acknowledge her for making these. Yep.
Thank you.
These weren't found in a book. She made these herself from the best data you could get from Brazil. So nice job. So questions, comments. Are you all good with this? I know we're not Brazilians ourselves, but you're going to find out that they're having some of the same issues that we are here in California, and it just amazes me. So Thomas?
Yeah, I was curious about the biomass energy generation.
Oh, okay.
Do you know anything about that?
I think Rena knows more about that.
The biomass? What's that biomass generation?
What is specifically you wanna know?
What is it? You know what it is?
Yeah, use cane bagasse to produce electricity, but
Bagasse, or what else do they use? What's the biggest crop?
in Brazil, it's sugar cane.
And what,
The bagasse is from sugar cane. Yeah, sugar cane bagasse.
that's it. Cutting it down, burning it.
Yeah. And I have a question for Anna. Yeah. And what region is the highest energy consumer in Brazil? In what region?
It's São Paulo. The southeast has a higher consumption.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
All right, great. So let's flip to the next set, if you could. Go 13 through 24.
Okay, so
Carry on. Good job.
this is about hydroelectric generation. In Brazil, it's the second bigger one. The bigger one is China, and the Brazil produces like 411 terawatt hour per year. Here is the hydropower potential in Brazil. So that the area in Amazon has a high potential here. And also we have a high potential here at the south of Brazil. But here are the installed capacity in Brazil, and like the installed capacity is higher here in the south because there are many industries and it's more populated in this area, and in the north we don't have that demand for energy. And this map is about the hydropowers in Brazil. The bigger hydropowers are the green stars here, and most of them are in the south of Brazil, in the southeast too. So this table is about hydropower plants. In Brazil, we have 3 types of hydropower plants. The first one is hydroelectrical generation center. That is the installed capacity have to be less than 1 megawatt. And the small hydroelectric center, that the installed capacity have to be between 1 and 30 megawatts. And the hydropower plant should be higher than 30 megawatt. So here is the quantity in Brazil. Like hydropower plant, we have 200, and in the other types, we have more. But most of the capacity in Brazil is in hydropower plant. It's about 9.3% that we have right now. This is operating. These are the hydropowers that are going to be constructed, and these are the planned one that didn't start to construct. Let's talk about wind power generation. The wind power is a renewable resource that is increasing in Brazil. And here is the potential of the wind power. This range is about wind speed. So the darker colors are the best potential. So the best potential in Brazil is in the south, in this area, and up to the north, in the northeast area. And here are all the wind farms in Brazil that they have right now. It's in that area in the northeast, in the south. And also these areas has a big population in this area. And that's it. So these are the wind farms that are constructing in Brazil are the gray one. And the green one is about the wind farms that they didn't start to construct, but they are planted here. And also in this map, we have the transmission lines. So here is about the wind generation in Brazil. That is the quantity of facilities that we have, the quantity of wind farms. So we are going to construct more 330, and also the capacity are going to increase as well. So let's start with the solar energy.
Why don't we just stop right there for a moment, and then we'll come to the solar energy on this. So, Alec?
Interesting to see the
I'm sorry, yep.
Looking at the slides, the hydropower potential is more in the Amazon there. That's where the resource is. The consumers are very far away. Looking at the wind potential, the resources are much closer to the users. Does the government has developed policies reflecting that? That, for example, wind resources are utilized easier and quicker for the generation in order to provide the increasing demand in the urbanized centers, or have the policies not really been up to that?
I don't know, do you know the answers about wind policy? Go ahead. Yeah. Yes. Made good question. I'm not sure if we've really studied policies yet. You can look at this growth graph. Remember, we go back to this one here. That's on number 11. See.
Ah, okay.
So this is you can show what's planned.
Like the wind generation are going to increase like 9%, and yeah, that's it. Before it was like 5%, and it's going to increase.
So it's going to grow, but not at the it's not at the same scale as hydro.
Like we have a potential of 140 gigawatts, and we use just, it was in another slide.
No, this is it right here. This is an interesting one. Your first, what's the installed capacity right now?
It's 137.
So
gigawatts.
137 to meet the demand of today. The potential for wind alone could meet all of that, right?
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah. That doesn't mean you'd go build out all the wind, but the potential is there if you wanted.
That's what I mean. Brazil has come on the scene in regard to wind resource utilization only the last couple of years, and we see the resource is amazing, and it's actually much closer to the user concentration. So the government should actually reflect that in the development of appropriate policies, so that wind energy resources can be tapped into more easily, economically speaking, for companies than hydro, even though both are clean, because hydro is much further away and in a much more sensitive environment, ecosystem, because it's in the Amazon region, where we have a very little population, but we need to cut huge lines into the jungle to have the transmission lines built. So ecologically speaking, we create a much bigger disaster if we tap into the hydro resources at the moment for Brazil rather than into the wind resources. So has the government understood that and reflect, and this understanding, is that reflected in the policies presented to the people and the companies to tap into the resources, to make the available resources, how can I say, tapping into the available resources and converting them into usable electricity for the users, so that electricity unit becomes affordable for the poor and for the average population.
I kind of think he answered his own question, and you just got it on camera, so you just, so that may be a question that ends up to the Brazilian community. I don't ask students that are, in college right now if they know all the policies. That's not, that we don't get a chance to study all of that entirely. So please, Mike.
So this question for both you and you. So the price of the fossil energy much cheaper than wind or solar energy. So how
Price for what is cheaper?
fossil energy?
No, price for hydro is much cheaper.
Okay, and hydro also cheaper than solar and wind energy in our country. I don't know in US or in Brazil. So how to promote use the higher price of wind and solar energy.
How do you do that? Okay.
I'd say this is government subsidies. That's one way this works. And seeing solar and wind farms in the U.S., that's how primarily they get the costs cut down. Yeah. I'm sure that these policies do exist currently right now. That this is how, I mean, a couple of these farms, like upfront, building them is really expensive, but they have been subsidized. And even like where I'm from in India, a lot of our solar farms, they're looking to produce 100,000 megawatts by the end of, I believe, 2030 or something like that. And it's about 30-40% of it is subsidized.
So we talked about it today. Do you remember the specific? We didn't call them subsidies. We call them incentive programs around wind. Do you remember what we called those today, Anna?
I don't remember.
There's one called the PTC. And the ITC. Do you remember what they stand for? Well, the PTC is the production tax credit. So every time you produce a kilowatt, you get like a penny and a half for every kilowatt you produce. The investment tax credit, kilowatt hour, the investment tax credit incentivizes the developer to actually build, and usually they get a tax credit in the year that they finish. So they don't pay as much taxes for that particular project. So those are for wind farms and big solar farms, those are two, I don't want to call them subsidies, they're incentive programs that we have in America and other places in the world.
I don't know about the policy, sorry.
Yeah, they haven't studied the policies yet, Mike.
Yeah, I didn't have time.
Yeah. All right, good. Other questions?
Actually, I think the biggest difference between Brazil and the US is that we don't have a program as the Renewable Portfolio Standard. We don't have a long-term policy in Brazil to foster these ideas.
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay, good. Other questions, comments? We'll get to that. We hang on to session 5. Session 5 is part of the roadmap, and that should be included in some of those roadmaps for the policies, right? What are the policies that should be implemented to incentivize more wind, more solar? Because you're about to see the solar potential, and it'll blow your brain, the solar potential of this continent. So let's shift to the next set. We're going to start with it looks like it starts with 26 over here. Can we have 27 over on number 1? I know there was a couple slides that we had to shift, so that's what. So it's going to be 27, 28 on number 2, and you can follow it around. Okay. There you go, Anna.
Okay, so now it's about solar energy. Could you put that again? We missed that screen.
Oh. So that's what happened. Number 12. Okay, Paul Michael.
It's 12. Number 12.
Number 1, go to 26. There you go.
30.
Isn't that it?
Okay, so Brazil has a good potential for solar energy, but we doesn't have many solar farms. And here in the graphs, we have a trend for all Brazil, and this is for the south region in Brazil. This graph has a higher variation. This is radiation, and this is during the months of the year. Like our winter is here around May and July, and the summer is December to February. So our higher radiation is about these months. And in the south of Brazil, we have a higher variation because of the latitude. The latitude is higher. And here is the West Center. The best place for the solar energy is in the District Federal. That is this square here. That is the most populated area in the West Center of Brazil. And here is the north area. They also have a good potential. And this map is about the solar potential. And the black one are the wind farms. And the green, solar farms, sorry. And the green one is the solar farms that are going to be constructed. But here, the solar farms, they have just 0.4 megawatts to 5 megawatts. It's not too much. But we are going to construct solar farms about 5 to 30 megawatts. So that's good. So here we have a graph about how many solar farms we have. We have 23 and are going to construct more, about 38. And here is the capacity about the solar farms that is in operation. We have just a few capacity, and we will have like more than 1,000 megawatts of capacity.
Those are megawatts. Those are megawatts.
Yeah.
Right. 1 gigawatt. 1 gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts, right?
Yeah.
So, and I just want to emphasize on number 4 up there, slide number 29, the whole country has a solar potential that's off the charts. They just haven't gotten started yet. As a country, it's been a hydro supply forever, and they're almost starting from scratch on solar. But there was a request for proposal, Anna. Remember, I think I sent it to you. There's an RFP for solar from the government, and how big was it?
I don't remember.
You guys remember? How big was that solar request for proposal? You remember, Leticia, maybe? How big a request for proposal that solar was from the government? I think I sent it to you guys. A 12 gigawatt request. So a 12-fold increase is coming for Brazil from solar in the near future. That's just getting that industry started. And I tell these students, if you want to get in an industry that's on the grow, that's an industry that's going to grow, right? So any more questions to Anna? We have one more presentation from Leticia. She's going to focus on the water side of this. Would you give her a big hand? Hey, very nice. Very nice. Good job, Anna.
Thank you.
All right, good. So if you'll set up the next slideshow, there's one that says Presentation Leticia underneath. If you need some help, one of the students can help. Run around and number 1, okay, it says starts with Brazil and water. So this is where it starts to look like, unfortunately, California in some places. All right. So Leticia, please introduce yourself and get started.
That's good. So, good evening. My name is Leticia. I'm also Brazilian and student in environmental engineering in Federal University of Lavras, back in Brazil. Here at Gini, I'm working the water situation in Brazil, and mostly through maps is that what I'm going to present tonight. So, as well know, Brazil has a plenty quantity of water. As you can see here, this is a natural division of 8 water bases in Brazil. It's divided according to the geography and water flows. It also has a 12 basin districts division that's divided according to the politicians for management and water plants. Oh, it's not working? Okay. So even with Brazil has the highest percentage of water in the world. It's represented by 12%, but unfortunately, it's not well distributed. As you can see here in the darker blue in the slide 4, the most part of the water is at Amazon basin, but it's not related. It doesn't match the population distribution. That's most in the southeast region and the coastal zone. The water in Brazil goes mostly related to the irrigation sector, represent of 72%. And a really bad thing is that 45% of that water is wasted due to lack of farmer control and management. Keep this in mind about all this water waste. Now I'm going to talk about Brazil, its drought and impacts. Brazil is facing now a really severe drought during the past months, and due to its high dependence in the water for electricity production, in the past year, some cities in the southeast region had a power price up of 60%. One of the reasons of that is that, as I told before, most population in Brazil is located in the southeast. It can be represented for São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. And it's facing a medium to extremely high water stress. Another reason for that is the water supply variability in Brazil that can be seen here in 2 ways. This is a interannual variability that it's measured by year, and here you can see in the darker red in the northeast, it's because the northeast is already known as a really dry region. That's why it's common. But now we are facing a higher seasonal variability that can affect most of the country. Since we have the worst situation in southeast, now I'm going to focus in the southeast and São Paulo water crisis. Just to introduce, this is a picture of the Cantareira system. This is the major supply of water to the São Paulo metropolitan region. This map can show how it is really bad in some metropolitan. The dark, it's not working. Oh, no, it is. Oh, cool. The purple color represents the affected regions. Here you can see São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, while the yellow represents the risky region. The blue box represents the population in millions of people. And something that I would like to highlight here is that 95% of the São Paulo metropolitan region was affected in the drought in the last year. Yes. Okay.
Too much information on that one slide. You can
Yeah.
read it on your own. So good. So questions about this is the big overview of Brazil and its water supply, where it comes from, where the people live. Any questions, comments? Alex?
How does the government prepare the local people in urbanized areas, I don't even ask villages, in regard to the water availability and electricity availability in the view of the climate change, which Brazil probably faces already now? Is there any awareness campaign or not at all?
I would say that they don't, because in the past 3 years, we also had political transition, so they don't want to put themselves in a bad situation. Then they don't want to show that this is during their years of power in Brazil. So that's why it was kind of hidden by the government. But
politicians
the people
don't always
feel
don't want to tell the truth.
So again, the local people
Yeah.
The local people are the ones to suffer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we had cut off water when we have crisis, and we just don't have energy and water some days.
Just don't have energy or water.
Do any of the people of the Brazilian students come from Sao Paulo?
Anybody come from Sao Paulo here?
Um,
One of the Brazilian students?
no.
No. Okay. No.
Yeah, and we've been here for more than 1 year, so that's why we are not suffering that. But even in my city, that's a small city in Minas Gerais, they can say that the water levels are down, that they just can't do it. They can just see that the energy is the energy price is increasing. And just that.
Yes.
The state. I'm from not the big São Paulo, the capital. I'm from a small city in the state. So my city didn't suffer with the lack of water. So we had the water normally there, but São Paulo is big. Some places suffer with the lack of water. So there are three main cities, main agglomeration, I can say that suffer with the lack of water there. And who suffer was poor people. So they cut water from poor people that live in favela. And do you know what is favela? It's like a ghetto. And they cut the water of these people. And the supply in Brazil is complicated, kind of complicated, because they didn't cut water from big companies there.
Yeah.
They keep with the supply, and they didn't have great policies to use the water in an efficiency way, and they hide from people that they were using the volume of the reservoir that they couldn't use, and they just hide it and keep using it because they would like to be in the power again. So it's more politics than the reservoir and the rainfall found, It's
Just to make it clear, she said that she's from São Paulo, but she's not from São Paulo. It's because we have São Paulo State and São Paulo City. Yeah, that's the São Paulo capital.
All right, good. So let's flip to the next set so we can go from 13 through 24 all the way around. So I hope you guys kind of appreciate the sort of the surround presentation. So instead of a linear slide deck, you get to look at the whole thing and then have, I think, a richer dialogue, right? Okay, you're good.
So easier to see it. It's this graph shows how the situation is getting worse during the years. You can see in the green line represents the year of 2009, where the water reservoir, the volume of the water reservoir was 92.5, and the red line represents the last year, and during the month of May, it got 8.2% of the volume of the entire reservoir. So how the things will be now. Here is a rainfall projection. You can see that if the things keep going this way, in the end of this year, we will get the lowest volume possible in the dead volume. And even in an optimistic view, if the rainfall increases 50% above the average, it will not get even 50% of the volume of the reservoir. To make it easier to visualize, here is image of the Jaguari Reservoir. It's one of the reservoirs that that supplies the Cantareira system. I put two pictures side by side. In the left-hand side, you can see the reservoir in the year of 2013. And here is 2014. You can see how the levels of the water decreased. So now I'm going to switch to floods and its impacts. It can sound weird, but how we saw in the past series, in the middle of this climate change, we can have drought and floods even at the same location. In this projection, the darker blue represents the risk of, of flood potential, and how you can see it can affect almost all the country. To help that, the World Resource Institute created this tool that can project the net savings in a short-term flood protection of 10 years. Here, you can see the urban damage in a 10 years protections. This is to Brazil. It could be saved $2.6 billion. And in a 50 years plan, it could be saved $18.6 billion just for urban damage. We can also see that for affected GDP and population. Now I'm switched to deforestation. As we saw 2 weeks ago, the deforestation is responsible for the highest percentage of emissions of CO2 emissions in Brazil, and it's really related to global warming and water and all these water issues that we saw right now. So I'd like to play this video. Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, really bad.
That was bad. And that was real time. That was data. That wasn't make believe. That was current data.
Yeah, it's from NASA. I also have a video for deforestation. So, as Peter said, it's really bad. So here, it's also from NASA. It's a map that shows the forest cover. So it's the good thing here is that the government was worried about that, and in the year of 2000, they created a national plan for the forest protection, and between the years of 2000 to 2012, the Brazil decreased forest loss more than any other country. So it seems really good, but and here we also have this map shows the upstream protected land. The light yellow can show how the Amazon is protected, but the people doesn't respect that. Even with all this protection, after 2012, many people are still taking advantage of the natural resource and cutting trees. I don't have to.
Questions on this set of slides here that you just seen that sometimes is a devastating look?
Yeah. So what is the percentage of the total Brazilian rainforest that has been deforested to date?
Today, I don't know exactly how much, but the next video will show in the map itself. I just don't know, don't have it in numbers.
Okay, fine. Something we can look up. We'll find out. So thanks for the question.
Looking at slide 15, it's really shocking. How much do the local people know about these circumstances? Are they informed? Are they knowledgeable about it, or they just one day wake up and there is no water in the taps? Or
Yeah, it's more like that. They just, I think they knew that when it happened, when they didn't have water in the taps, when they have to pay more for the water, when they have to pay more for the energy. But it's also complicated because the big companies, not just the government, but big companies are still using it, and they doesn't want to show that this reality.
Good. Here, Tom?
You're welcome.
Do you know if the deforestation is primarily lumber, or is it?
I'm gonna show that.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
It's coming up. Anything else? Okay, I think when we're on our last set here, so if you could flip around to 25 through 36, all the way around. Is 25 also a video? It is.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
It's
let's
a short video.
Let's go back one. So you got two videos in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as I told you, that protection that appeared here was from 2000 to 2012, and here it's difficult to see, but this
So you can go to 20. No, there's no sound to that one.
no.
It was just you just look at the tree cover loss
Just to show the
that's
increase.
occurring. And then on 26, what's playing on 26?
Oh, it wasn't final, but anyway, a bad thing that is the fast way that they find to cut all this tree and to clean the area. It's to
Pretty.
put fires on that. So here you can see just in the last year. We can also have like natural fires during the it's getting dry, but most of them are human caused.
And why do they cut? Why do they use the fires? Why
So he asked, the mainly reason is for cattle ranching. Yeah.
yeah,
So
clearing the forest.
the demand for meat is increasing, so they need the land. They cut in the trees. Here you can see 1996, just this red part here, here, that was used for, this is a state known as meat production, but now they are taking advantage of the Amazon area. This is from 2006. Here it's also easy to see how it's really related. The raising cattle requires grazing land, so trees are cut down to make room. You can see how it's really proportional. Okay, so that's why.
And if you're more curious, the next presentation is in 2 weeks, right? We want
So
you to
if you
come
want to
back.
see about solutions, come to next
Yeah.
presentation.
Would you give her a big hand? Hey. So again, would you jump up, Anna? So here's our two Brazilian students. Again, if you had to present in their language, how would you do? These two ladies. Now they've been in America almost a year, so they've been obviously studying engineering and English. But I certainly want to acknowledge you both for doing a great job on the not only the presentation but the quality of the work that you did. So any more questions, comments that you have? Yes. Yes. You know, there's hope for our future. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Very nice. Anybody else? Alex? Just a second. I gotta get a. Wait a minute.
How many years on average, if they cut down the Amazon forest jungles and they would like to raise cattle, how many years can they economically beneficially raise cattle on a cleared jungle field? Is it 2 years, 3 years before they have to move on and cut down more jungle, or how many years is it economically beneficial?
I don't know. Like you mean how many years the land will be useful for them?
Exactly. For example, for raising cattle for meat.
I think the problem is that the meat consumption is what is also raising. So I guess it would be just. Oh, sorry. I guess it would be just worse. I'm not sure.
I assume it's very short, probably 2 years, 3 years the most. That's what my gut feeling is, that if we cut down the jungle, which is exactly, the whole ecosystem is so multi-sectorial, but if we cut down all the jungle and just grow grass for cattle growth, for meat, in 2-3 years time, even the grass is not growing anymore, because the whole ecosystem has been put out of balance. Are there any information around how many years farmers can really graze their cattle on new gained ground from jungles?
Yeah, just a minute. I don't know how many years it stays there, but I know that this soil in the Amazon is really fragile. It's like even if you cut the trees, maybe you can think, oh, it has a forest, so I can plant anything that I want, but it doesn't have. So maybe if they wanna keep using this land for years and years, for me it will not be good. Like it can get worse.
We have a problem that most areas that there are cattle ranching in the Amazonia are illegal. So sometimes a guard can found that and can close. Like they stop to do that. They stop with the cattle ranching.
These are illegal cattle ranches, you're saying?
Yeah, most in the Amazon forests are illegal. So if the guards found, they can close that.
I think it's illegal because it has plan, it has protection, but it's most in paper, not in reality. They don't have like people watching that, so that's why it happened so easy.
Dr. Foster.
Maybe just a quick point. I was just deeply impressed by all those students. This is really impressive. I have lots of graduate students. You guys would do a wonderful job in graduate school. One piece that for the Amazon that might be really fun to look at. There is a person named Greg Asner. I don't know if he's at Stanford University. and he runs something that's called the Carnegie Airborne Observatory, or CAO. They were just in the Amazon 2 weeks ago, and they have some of the most spectacular data of hyperspectral imagery of the Amazon. It's mostly available on Twitter. But one of the big things that he has worked on for several years is a major cause of the deforestation, and parts of it is people are deforesting it because they're getting the gold from the sediments that are underneath. And so he has some absolutely incredible images also on his Twitter account. But since they just came back from the Amazon, they have now the single best data ever in the world taken. And since he has about 20 students that are working with him I think none of them speak Portuguese. So it might actually be something that maybe through this group to connect to Greg and the Carnegie Airborne Observatory, you might get connected to some of the best data in the world that was just collected.
Oh.
It's really spectacular data.
Thank you.
Was this satellite data or drone data or?
Neither. They have a special airplane that is full of instruments. That they fly the airplane and they fly. So it's hyperspectral. So they fly from 400 nanometers to 2,500 nanometers in 5 nanometer segments. So what that means is visible to near visible and infrared in tiny little segments, and then they can put it together. And they also fly LiDAR, so they make a 3-dimensional image of everything. So it's unbelievably spectacular data. And the point of much of what they're doing is they're deforesting to get the gold.
Mm-hmm.
The old gold rush, huh? But we're doing it with higher tech technology, right? Well, that's why they're cutting trees. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
to
sure
get the
that
gold, right?
there are many things that we don't know. Like another thing that we usually don't see is that the biodiversity that is the highest. It's the highest in the world. That is in Brazil. It's also affected, and also people, indigenous people that lives there. So it's even worse than we think.
So I want to make sure you guys connect up with Greg Asner at the
Carnegie Airborne Observatory.
Somebody write that down. Carnegie Airborne Observatory, Greg Asner. We want to connect up. You just got back, you said. Great. We'll get into his Twitter account. Any other questions, comments? I know we're a little bit over time. I thank you for staying. You guys did a great job. Trevor, Ajit, Leticia, Anna, congratulations. Very nice. We'll be back here for 2 more of these. The next one is on August 6th, again, a Thursday evening, and it'll be on the best practices both locally and nationally on energy systems and water systems. So it's not the roadmap yet, but what are the best practices to actually deliver renewables and clean water to our society and a developing society as well? There's 2 different answers. There's high-tech and low-tech solutions. Come back in 2 weeks. We'll see you then. Thank you, guys. Good job. Thank you.
Nice job, guys.
Students will be presenting then.